millionaire CEO allergic to women and single for 30 years, but falls for an intern at first sight. It was a cold December morning in Manhattan. Claire Monroe had nothing but a fraying backpack, worn-out sneakers, and the desperate hope that today's interview might save her mother's life. She'd just canceled a live stream, skipped breakfast, and run 10 blocks chasing a job that might pay for the heart surgery her mother couldn't wait much longer for. She stepped into the glittering glass tower of Whitaker Media Group, unaware that she was about to walk into the wrong room and the center of a billionaire's impossible problem. Ethan Whitaker, 38 years old, media tycoon, notoriously single, had spent his life untouched by love. Not because he hadn't tried, but because his body reacted violently to physical contact with women. A real, documented allergy, a real, impossible wall. But the moment Claire walked in, something strange happened. They didn't flinch, and neither of them knew that a mistaken interview and a borrowed name would change everything. Intern made New York. Ethan Whitaker didn't believe in fate. He believed in numbers. Clean, even numbers. 2S, 4S, 6S. His world was built on symmetry, predictability, and systems that never failed him. Women, on the other hand, were chaos. For 30 years, Ethan avoided dating. Not because he lacked attention. He was rich, devastatingly handsome, and the heir to one of America's largest media empires. But because every time a woman touched him, his skin would break into hives. Red, itchy, humiliating hives. Diagnosed at 17, embarrassed for life. He called it a curse. His grandmother, Grace Whitaker, called it nonsense. "You're not cursed, Ethan," she'd say, poking her cane into his ribs. "You're just stubborn. Love is messy. You just have to let someone get close enough to see the mess." But Ethan never let anyone close, not even Grace. Not until she got sick. And that's when everything changed. That same morning, across town, Claire Monroe skipped a red light and nearly got hit by a bus. She didn't care. She was already late, and her phone buzzed with a dozen reminders. Mom's surgery quote due today. $38,200.00. Hospital billing office closes at 5 p.m. Last day to apply for temp work at Whitaker Media. Claire didn't dream of fame. She just needed a job. Any job. For now, she worked odd gigs as a livestream host, reviewing cheap cosmetics and chasing tips on social media. It barely paid enough to keep her mother in the hospital bed. Her real dream? To survive this week. So, when she arrived at Whitaker Tower, flustered and breathless, she didn't ask too many questions. She just followed a line of well-dressed women into an elevator and let fate lead the way. The top floor of Whitaker Tower didn't host job interviews, but hosted secrets. That morning, Ethan sat in his private conference room, dressed in a black three-piece suit, scowling at a tray of carefully selected resumes. Not for executive assistants or marketing directors. "That's for a girlfriend?" "You realize how insane this is," he muttered to his assistant, Marcus Grayson, who was adjusting his tie. Marcus cleared his throat. "Your grandmother insisted. She wants to see you settled before her next hospital round. The last two candidates fainted, one cried and one tried to kiss you without warning." Ethan grimaced at the memory. His face had puffed up like a balloon for 2 days after that. "Elisa asked Dmitrievich," Ethan asked. "Professional, discreet, and—" Marcus paused, checking his tablet. "Oddly enough, one wild card?" But before Marcus could explain, the door opened. And Claire walked in. She looked nothing like the other women. No designer heels, no thick portfolio, no perfume cloud following her. Just a girl in thrift store boots, holding a resume printed on recycled paper, with hands that trembled ever so slightly. "I'm number 6, she said quietly. Ethan looked up, and for the first time in years, nothing happened. No rash, no itch, a strangeness. He didn't know it, but Claire had walked into the wrong room. She was supposed to be interviewing for a social media intern position 3 floors below. But to Ethan, she was the first woman who didn't set off his allergy. And he wasn't about to. "Why would you want from me?" he asked suddenly, if you were my girlfriend? Claire blinked, confused. Excuse me? I mean, hypothetically, if you were in a relationship with someone like me, what would you expect in return? Claire laughed nervously. I'm not here for that. Ethan tilted his head. But what if I wanted you to be? What if I offered you $50,000, 0 cents a month, to be my companion? For public appearances, family functions, charity events, no physical contact required. Claire stared at him, and then she said clearly, I'm not for sale. And she left. But Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her. Later that day, Marcus showed him the security footage and found her name, Claire Monroe. A nobody on paper, a struggling beauty vlogger, a girl who'd accidentally become the first woman in 30 years to stand that close to Ethan Whitaker without giving him hives. He was intrigued. Grandma Grace was thrilled. You bring that girl back, she said from her hospital bed. I don't care if she's a florist or a magician. If she makes your skin behave, she's the one. So Ethan made an offer Claire couldn't refuse. She'd cover her mother's hospital bills, every dollar, in exchange for one thing. Be my contract girlfriend, just until Grandma gets better. Claire said no, and then said yes. Because desperate people make impossible choices. And that's how a billionaire who couldn't touch women ended up falling in love with the only woman he was never supposed to. Not knowing that Claire had a secret. One that could ruin everything. Session 1. The Arrangement. Upper East Side, Manhattan, 6:45 p.m. Claire Monroe stood in front of the most expensive door she'd ever seen in her life. Walnut wood, gold inlay, and a fingerprint scanner that made her thrift store coat feel like a sin. She hadn't even knocked yet, and she was already sweating. This is crazy, she whispered to herself. Behind her, the private elevator dinged shut. There was no going back. Earlier that morning, she'd signed the contract in shaky pen strokes. Girlfriend of Ethan Whitaker, for family and public appearances only. 0 physical contact, duration flexible, based on Grandma Grace's health. She didn't ask questions about the fine print. She just saw the amount. $50,000, 0 cents/month. Paid up front. Enough to get her mother into surgery. Enough to keep a roof over their heads. Enough to pretend, for a while, that she wasn't scared. Inside the penthouse, Ethan stood by the window, watching the city lights. He'd never shared this space with anyone. Not even a cleaning crew came up unless he was out. This was his fortress, his one place of control. Now, that control was being tested. He adjusted his cufflinks, then turned as the door opened. Claire stepped in, eyes wide, her breath catching as she saw the marble floors, the glass staircase, the priceless paintings along the walls. This isn't an apartment, she said softly. It's a museum that forgot it needed people. But it doesn't smile. But his eyes softened. You're late. I'm not a pet, she replied. Don't expect me to come when called. Silence stretched between them. Then he gestured to a folder on the coffee table. House rules, expectations. Grandma believes we're engaged. She wants wedding photos soon. Claire blinked. Wedding photos? It's for show. After that, we live together. For now. Claire sank onto the edge of the sofa, her hands gripping her backpack. I don't sleep with men I don't know, she said plainly. You won't be sleeping with me. I'll take the master. You can have the guest room. But when he added, for appearances, we'll need to act the part. That includes holding hands. Public dinners, smiling like we're in love. Claire raised an eyebrow. Do I get hazard pay for pretending to love someone who's allergic to human contact? His jaw tightened. Don't push me. We don't underestimate me, she shot back. I'm not a toy you can program, Mr. Whitaker. They stared at each other like two chess players in a sudden death round. Then Claire stood up and walked past him, toward the hallway. Where are you going? He asked. To memorize your stupid house rules. If I'm going to fake this, I'll do it better than you expect. Later that night, Claire lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. This place didn't feel real. The sheets were silk, the room smelled like eucalyptus and expensive silence. Outside her window, the skyline glittered like a lie. She missed her mother's tiny hospital room, the old TV, the soft beep of machines, the sound of her mom humming 80s ballads under her breath. She turned to her side and whispered, "Don't worry, Mom. Just hold on. I'll get you through this, even if I have to marry the coldest man in Manhattan." Meanwhile, across the hall, Ethan scrolled through her file again. Claire Monroe, 26, lives in Queens, social media host, no criminal record, one hospital emergency flagged for her mother. She shouldn't have intrigued him, but she did. There was something about her eyes, wild, unpolished, honest in a way most women never dared to be around him. He closed the file and turned off the light. But for the first time in years, he couldn't sleep. The next morning, 7:30 a.m. Claire stumbled into the kitchen wearing a borrowed robe. She didn't expect to see Ethan already at the stove, in tailored slacks and no tie, flipping pancakes. She froze. He glanced at her, cool as ever. "You're late." "It's not even 8. Grandma's expecting a photo of us having breakfast together." Claire blinked. "You want to take a selfie?" He picked up his phone and walked over. "Get closer, smile, pretend you like me." She forced a grin. "Pretending is your specialty." He didn't react, but as the shutter clicked, she saw it, a tiny twitch at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile, but close. That afternoon, Mount Sinai Hospital. Laura visited her mother during lunch. Her mom was still asleep, oxygen gently hissing through the mask. Claire held her hand, heart heavy. "You're going to be okay?" she whispered. "I signed a deal with—" She left before her mother could wake, before she could see the tears. Back at the penthouse, Ethan sat with Grandma Grace, showing her the new photo. "Ah, Molly, she's beautiful," Grace beamed. "And look, you're smiling. You haven't smiled in a photo since your prom." Ethan didn't deny it. Grace leaned closer, her voice soft. "You like her, don't you?" "It's just for you, Grandma." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it. That night, in the hallway, Claire walked past him in the hallway, barefoot, holding a bowl of cereal. He looked up from his tablet. "Is that dinner?" "It's cereal. Welcome to reality. You can order anything you want here." "I'm used to making do." He studied her for a moment. "Why'd you really agree to this?" She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Why'd you really hire me?" He hesitated. Quietly, "Because you're the only woman who's ever touched my world without hurting me." Claire's breath caught. Neither of them spoke again. But something unspoken bloomed between them. Mission 2. The photo shoot that went too far. Saturday, 10:15 a.m. Brooklyn wedding loft. Claire Monroe adjusted the strap of the satin gown on her shoulder, staring at herself in the mirror like she didn't recognize the woman looking back. The lace was ivory. The veil shimmered under the vintage chandelier light, and for a moment, just one, she looked like someone who belonged in this world. But she didn't, either. This wasn't her wedding. It wasn't even her dress. It was a lie, sewn together in silk and secrecy. Behind the dressing curtain, Ethan Whitaker waited, dressed in a tailored navy tuxedo that made him look like something out of a magazine. His jaw was tight, his eyes unreadable. He hated photos, hated attention. But today wasn't about him. It was for Grandma Grace. Earlier that week, Grace had clasped Ethan's hand with quiet urgency in her voice. "A photo. That's all I ask. A wedding photo, so I can frame it by my bedside. I just want to believe, even for a second, that you found someone who makes you happy." And so Ethan had scheduled it, quietly, expensively. And now, here they were, wanting to be in love, inside the photo studio. "Closer," the photographer instructed. You're supposed to be engaged. A little chemistry wouldn't kill you. Ethan stepped slightly closer to Claire. Their arms brushed. Claire flinched. He noticed. I'm not going to bite, he muttered under his breath. Maybe not, she whispered back, but your cologne's intense enough to knock out a horse. He stifled a grin. Okay, now face each other, the photographer barked. Hold her waist, Mr. Whitaker. Look into each other's eyes like you mean it. Claire hesitated. Ethan gently placed his hand on her waist. His touch was cautious, almost afraid, like he was testing his own limits. She looked up. Their eyes met. Something shifted. The room seemed to fade. For a heartbeat, they weren't posing. They weren't pretending. They were just there. To him. And a truth they couldn't name. All right, the photographer clapped. Next pose, the kiss. Claire's mouth parted. Kiss her on the forehead. It's soft, romantic. We need at least one. Icahn glanced at Claire. We don't have to. It's fine, she interrupted. Her voice was steady, but her heart pounded. He stepped closer. Slowly. Carefully. His hand hovered near her cheek, not quite touching. And then, just barely, he brushed his lips to her forehead. Not quick. Chaste. But something inside Claire unraveled. She blinked twice, trying to steady herself. Her mother's hospital room flashed through her mind. Don't forget why you're here. After the shoot, 12:37 p.m. They rode back to the penthouse in silence. Neither of them said a word until the elevator closed behind them. Ethan broke it first. You okay? Claire nodded. You didn't break out in hives. I think that's a record. He almost smiled. You didn't run out screaming. Also a record. She folded her arms. I thought this was supposed to be strictly professional. He looked at her, direct, unreadable. It still is. She didn't believe that, not anymore. Because something had changed. And they both felt it. That evening, Grandma's hospital room. Grace held the framed photo with trembling fingers. Her eyes welled up. You both look so in love. Neither Claire nor Ethan corrected her. Grace smiled. I can finally sleep tonight. Claire swallowed the lump in her throat. We're happy, Grace. Really? Ethan watched her as she spoke, something foreign stirring behind his eyes. That night, penthouse hallway. Claire walked out of the guest room in slippers, heading toward the kitchen, when she heard the sound of quiet coughing. She peeked into the living room. Ethan sat on the couch, shirt half unbuttoned, chest heaving slightly. A faint redness bloomed along his neck. Then dawned. He looked up, startled. It's nothing, just a reaction. Must been the florist's perfume at the studio. Claire hesitated. Do you need anything? He shook his head. No one's ever offered, you know. Offered what? Stay. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just walked over and sat beside him. And in the silence that followed, something began to heal. Meanwhile, downtown Manhattan, Daniel Hayes sat in his private office, holding the same photo Ethan and Claire had taken earlier. His assistant slid a report across the table. We ran a background check. Her name's Claire Monroe, but something doesn't add up. Daniel narrowed his eyes. He wasn't supposed to be in that room. Someone else was. Someone he was supposed to meet. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Well, he murmured, looks like the Whitaker boy's got himself into a mess. Let's see how far she's willing to go before the truth breaks them both. Session 3. The woman in the photograph. Themes: mistaken identity, emotional walls, rising stakes. Whitaker Media Group, Executive Office, Monday 8:12, 8 m. Ethan Whitaker was never late. But today, he sat frozen behind his glass desk, staring at the screen in front of him. Claire's face looked back at him. Only it wasn't Claire. It was a surveillance still, grainy, time-stamped from the day of the interview. She was standing at reception, holding a worn resume, talking nervously to the assistant. But next to the image was another one. Another woman. Identical face. Different clothes. Different attitude. Different energy. "Are you absolutely sure?" Ethan asked Marcus, who stood nearby, uneasy. Marcus nodded. "We double-checked. That woman, Jenna Monroe, is Claire's sister. Fraternal twins. She was the one scheduled to be interviewed that day, not Claire." Ethan looked back at the screen. The pieces began to fall. Claire had walked into the wrong room and never corrected him. She had pretended to be someone she wasn't. From the very beginning. At the penthouse, same morning, Claire stood in front of the stove, frying eggs she had no appetite for. Her mother's surgery had been approved. The money had gone through, the hospital bill paid in full. On paper, things were getting better. But inside, guilt was eating her alive. She'd told herself the lie was harmless, that no one was getting hurt. But it wasn't just a role anymore. Not since the photo shoot. Not since Ethan kissed her forehead like he meant it. Not since he sat on the couch last night, breathless, vulnerable, and let her stay. She didn't know when pretending stopped and feelings started. But she just knew she wasn't supposed to feel anything at all. 11 o'clock, I own Whitaker Media. Ethan paced his office. He wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. He should have been furious, betrayed, humiliated. Instead, he felt confused, intrigued, even protective. He remembered Claire's eyes that first day, wide, honest, afraid. She hadn't walked into his office with a plan. She'd stumbled into it like a girl running from a storm. But secrets had a price, and he needed to know the full story. That evening, the penthouse. Claire was in the kitchen, stacking dishes when Ethan walked in. He didn't say hello. He didn't even look at her at first. Instead, he placed an envelope on the counter. "What's this?" she asked. "A name? Jenna Monroe." Claire froze. The room grew cold. The hum of the refrigerator sounded deafening. "I know you're not the woman I was supposed to meet that day," he said quietly, "but you let me believe it. You signed that contract under a name that wasn't yours." "I didn't plan it," she said quickly. "I walked into the wrong room, and—" "Why what?" he snapped, finally looking at her. "You saw a rich man offering money and thought, why not?" Her eyes burned. "That's not fair." "Why? Then why didn't you say something?" "Because my mom was dying," she cried. "Because I was desperate and scared and alone. Because I saw a lifeline and grabbed it." Ethan stepped back, face unreadable. "You think I haven't been used before?" he said coldly. "Women have thrown themselves at me for less. I just never thought it would be you." Claire's voice broke. "I didn't use you." He turned away, then stopped. "For your life." That night, Grandma Grace's hospital room. Grace smiled as Ethan entered, holding a small bag of soup and flowers. "Is Claire?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "She's not who we thought," he said finally. Grace raised an eyebrow. "Are any of us?" Ethan sat beside her, quiet. "I used to think love had to be tidy," he said. "Logical, clean, but she walked into my life by mistake, and nothing has made more sense than her." Grace smiled gently. "Then don't let pride ruin the one thing your heart finally recognizes." Meanwhile, Claire's friend Haley's apartment. Claire curled up on the couch, holding a mug she hadn't touched. Haley sat beside her, silent, watching her come undone. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," Claire whispered. "Why, it did," Haley said. "So now what?" "I don't know." "You love him?" Claire didn't answer. Haley didn't need her to. "I think you do," she said softly, "and that scares you more than lying ever did." Claire wiped her eyes. "It's not just about love," she said. "It's about whether he'll ever believe it was real, if it didn't start with the truth." Next morning, Claire returns to the penthouse. She expected the locks to be changed, her things tossed, her name erased. But the elevator still worked. The door still opened. And inside, Ethan was waiting, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up, leaning against the kitchen island. "I don't forgive liars easily," he said without looking at her. "I know. But I also know what desperation looks like. I've lived in a prison made of it for 30 years. Claire stepped closer. "I didn't come back to beg," she said, "or to ask you to feel something you don't." He looked at her finally. "Then why?" She took a breath. "Because you were the first man who saw me as more than a livestream girl, and I was the first woman who didn't make you sick. Maybe there's something in that worth saving." Ethan was quiet for a long time. Then he reached into his pocket and slid something across the counter. It was the original contract, with a pen. "I'm rewriting it," he said. Claire stared. "Just start from now. No more pretending." And her voice cracked. "What does that mean?" He met her eyes. It means you move back in, Claire, but this time as yourself. Mission 4. A grandmother's secret. Themes: hidden past, emotional inheritance, redefining love. Whitaker penthouse, 3 days later. The apartment was quieter than usual. Since Claire had moved back in, things had shifted. Not romantically, not yet, but they'd begun to trust each other again. They ate dinner at the same table now. She folded his shirts without being asked. He stopped correcting her when she hummed off-key in the hallway. Something fragile was forming between them. Not love, but maybe the shape of love. And that night, Claire found it. It started with a yellowed envelope. Tucked inside the back drawer of the bookshelf, just beneath an old photo album, it had one name written on the front in soft, fading ink. Then Claire paused. The paper smelled like lavender and thyme. She didn't mean to open it, but when she saw the return address, Mount Sinai Hospice Wing, her hands moved before her mind caught up. It was written in Grace Whitaker's script. "Dearest Ethan," a letter began. "If you are reading this, it means I'm gone, or too close to the end to say what I need to say face to face." Claire sat on the couch, barely breathing. "You've always thought your allergy was a curse, that love was impossible for you because of something broken in your body, but that wasn't the full truth." Claire blinked. "When you were 3, your mother left. You don't remember her, and I never let her back in. What you remember is screaming, fevers, and my arms trying to soothe what medicine couldn't." Ethan's mother. Claire had never heard him speak of her. Doctors called it psychosomatic dermatological response. Your mind turned heartbreak into a rash, your skin began to rebel against comfort, against affection, because that first bond, that first woman, broke you. Claire's heart ached. "You're not sick, Ethan. You're scarred, and love can mend what medicine can't." Just then, Ethan stepped into the room. He saw the envelope in Claire's hand. The look on his face, pure stillness. "You read it," he said. Claire stood. "I didn't mean to. I was just cleaning, and—" "It's okay." He walked past her, sat down slowly, and took the letter from her hand. His eyes scanned it, trembling just slightly. "She always said my mother moved overseas," he said, almost to himself. She laughed. Claire said softly, "And you thought it was your fault?" He nodded. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan whispered something that made Claire's chest ache. "She hugged me before she left. It was the last touch I ever let matter." He looked at Claire. "I think I've been allergic to abandonment more than women." Claire reached for his hand. Gently, slowly, as if asking permission. He didn't pull away. Her fingers slid into his palm, warm and steady. He blinked, but didn't flinch. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel the familiar sting on his skin. Instead, he felt her. And it didn't burn, it healed. The next morning, Mount Sinai Hospital. They brought Grace flowers. She was frailer now, her skin thin like paper, her smile softer than ever. Claire sat on one side, Ethan on the other. Grace looked between them, her voice no more than a whisper. "Did you read it?" Ethan nodded. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I was afraid," she admitted. "Afraid you'd never forgive her. Or me." "I still don't understand," he said. "You don't need to," Grace replied. "You just need to live differently now. You've been guarding your heart so tightly for so long, I wanted you to know why." Ethan lowered his head. "I'm trying," he whispered. She reached out. Her hand touched his wrist. No rash. No reaction. Only peace. Back at the penthouse. Claire stood on the balcony, wrapped in Ethan's oversized sweater. The city sparkled like a million small promises beneath her. Ethan joined her, 2 mugs in hand. He handed her one. "Hot chocolate?" she asked. "Extra marshmallows." But she smiled. "I'm not who you were supposed to end up with," she said softly. "You know that, right?" "Maybe," he replied. "Or maybe you're exactly who I needed to meet when I stopped believing anyone ever could." She looked at him. "I still owe you the truth," she said. "All of it." He nodded. "Then give it to me slowly." Section 5. The debt collector and the DNA test. Themes: betrayal, family secrets, emotional conflict. Tuesday, p.m. Whitaker penthouse lobby. The security desk buzzed. Ethan answered on instinct. "Yes?" The voice on the other end was gravel-thick, confident. "Delivery from Ms. Claire Monroe. Urgent. Legal documents." Ethan's stomach tightened. He buzzed them up without another word. Claire was upstairs, folding laundry in one of his t-shirts. She had no idea that by nightfall, everything would change. Within minutes later, the knock came sharp and fast. Claire opened the door, and her face drained of color. A man stood there in a cheap leather jacket and scuffed boots. His face was older now, but Ethan recognized it from the background check he'd run weeks ago. Jared Monroe, Claire's ex. And according to one tabloid article from 2017, the man she once called her husband. "Claire," Jared said, voice smooth and venom-laced. "You look good. Playing house with a billionaire suits you." Claire froze. "What are you doing here?" Jared smiled, but there was nothing kind behind it. "I came to collect. You think I didn't hear about the money? The Whitaker contract? Your mom's surgery? The new apartment? The designer shoes?" "I haven't bought a thing," Claire snapped. "You're still breathing in a penthouse," Jared said, "so you owe me." Ethan stepped forward. "She owes you nothing." Jared tilted his head. "I don't remember talking to you." "Then let me be clear," Ethan said, voice steel. "You don't threaten people in my building, and you don't speak to her that way, ever." Jared laughed low. "You're just another rich idiot who thinks money protects you. Let's see how well you handle truth." He pulled a small envelope from his pocket and tossed it on the marble counter. Claire stared at it. A DNA test kit. "I want proof," Jared said, "that the kid wasn't mine. You remember, don't you, Claire? The baby you lost before you vanished?" Ethan's heart stopped. Claire's lips parted, but no sound came out. "You disappeared with your sister," Jared continued, "and you never said a word. I want answers, and I want payback." He turned to Ethan. "Let's see how long she lasts once you find out what kind of secrets your little girlfriend's really hiding." He walked out without another word. A question. Heavy. Crushing. Claire reached for the envelope with shaking hands. Her fingers barely grazed it before Ethan picked it up. "You were pregnant?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Was it his?" Her eyes filled. "No, I was already leaving him, but I lost the baby before I could say goodbye." "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. "Because I didn't want your pity, because I was trying to start over, because I didn't think I'd ever need to explain a pain that was supposed to stay buried. Ethan set the envelope down. I know? Claire looked up, voice cracking. I want to tell you everything. Later that night, Claire's full truth. They sat in the living room. No music, no wine, just truth between them. I told him everything. How Jared had been controlling. How she'd married young and naive. How she'd miscarried at 4 months and never felt safe enough to mourn. How Jenna, her twin, had helped her run. Disappear, rebuild. I became someone else to survive, she said, and the day I met you was the day I stopped pretending. Ethan didn't speak for a long time. Then he picked up the DNA kit and threw it in the trash. Whether it was a child, he said, it was yours. Not his, not mine, yours. That's all I need to know. Claire's tears spilled freely now. Why are you being so kind to me? Because for the first time in my life, he said, someone chose to stay, even when it was easier to run. The next day, Mount Sinai Hospital. Grace was asleep when Ethan arrived, but her nurse handed him something folded and aged. To letter. This one wasn't to him. It was to Claire. He took it home, unsure if he should open it, but when Claire returned from her mother's rehab checkup, he handed it to her without a word. And she unfolded it slowly. The girl who walked into my grandson's life by mistake. Grace had written, I knew the moment I saw your eyes that fate had intervened. You didn't belong in that room, but somehow you were exactly what he needed. Claire pressed the paper to her chest. Grace had known, even then. Love doesn't always start with honesty, my dear. Sometimes it begins with survival, but the truth is what makes it last. Later that evening, back on the balcony, Ethan and Claire stood side by side. I should have told you sooner, she said again. You did, he said. You told me the moment you stayed. He turned to her. Claire, do you love me? She didn't hesitate. He nodded. I love you too. But then he looked down. A message had come through from his lawyer. Daniel Hayes just filed an injunction against your company. Emergency board vote scheduled. More details to follow. Ethan's eyes darkened. Trouble had arrived. And this time, it wasn't about love. It was about legacy. Session 6. The man trying to destroy him. Themes: betrayal, legacy war, blood versus bond. Winter Tower, 17th floor executive boardroom. Wednesday, 8:42 IME. Ethan Whitaker stood at the head of the long mahogany table, arms folded, jaw tight. Across from him sat Daniel Hayes, calm, smug, and wearing the same navy silk tie Ethan's father once wore when announcing a merger that built the family empire. We've reviewed the numbers, Ethan, Daniel said smoothly. Your personal ventures, your contract hires, even that rebranding campaign. It's bleeding us. The board deserves stability. Ethan didn't blink. You mean control? Daniel leaned back. I mean vision. And the one you're chasing? This romantic legacy your grandmother planted in your head won't keep this company solvent. Several board members shifted uneasily. One of them cleared her throat. We're not voting on removing Mr. Whitaker, just freezing his executive powers until the quarterly review. Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. But Ethan saw the truth. This wasn't about financials, it was personal. A decades-old vendetta, finally making its move. Meanwhile, the penthouse. Claire sat at the breakfast bar, sipping cold coffee she forgot to reheat. She stared at her phone. A name stared back. Jenna Monroe. Mr. The last person she wanted to call, but the only one who might understand what was happening. She hit dial. It rang 3 times. Then, I was wondering how long it'd take. Claire swallowed. What did you do? Jenna sounded bored. I just had coffee with an old friend of Dad's, Daniel Hayes. Did you know his wife used to date our father? Small world. Claire stood, heart racing. You're working with Daniel? I wouldn't say working, more like correcting your mistake. Ethan's too sentimental for business, always has been. Claire's throat tightened. You're helping take him down? Jenna's voice dropped. You really think someone like you can save someone like him? Wake up, Claire. You're a pawn, you always have been. The line went dead. Whitaker Tower, rooftop parking deck, 12:06 p.m. Ethan stared at the skyline, phone to his ear. I need leverage, he told Marcus. Background checks, financial ties, any whispers about Daniel's position with Hayes Global. If he's coordinating with competitors, I want receipts. He hung up, the wind cut sharp. Behind him, Claire appeared. But she'd never looked so nervous. I need to tell you something, she said. Ethan didn't turn. It's about my sister, Claire continued. Jenna, she's working with Daniel. She's helping him push you out. He turned then, slowly. You knew. The day I called her. He looked at her long and hard. Why did you call? Because I was scared, she whispered. Because I saw your name in a battle you didn't start, and I thought maybe I could stop it before it got worse. Then, her voice cracked. I was wrong. That evening, Grandma Grace's hospital room. Grace opened her eyes slowly as Ethan placed a warm blanket over her legs. She used to sing here, Grace said suddenly. Ethan blinked. Your mother, right in this room, when I was recovering after a fall, she sat in that exact chair and sang lullabies meant for you. Ethan sat down, throat thick. I loved you, Ethan, just not well. He closed his eyes. I don't know how to fight this, Grace. I've spent years building something my father would respect, and now it's unraveling. Grace reached for his hand. Maybe it's not about building what he wanted. Maybe it's time to build what you believe in. Later that night, back at the penthouse, Claire stood in the kitchen when Ethan returned. His coat was soaked with rain, his eyes darker than she'd ever seen. He dropped a folder on the counter. What's this? She asked. Daniel's real reason for coming after me. She opened the folder. Photos, letters, a deed of inheritance, and then a name she recognized. Howard Monroe, Claire's father. Her breath left her chest. This can't be. Ethan nodded. Our fathers were partners, years ago, until mine discovered yours had embezzled funds from the women's scholarship trust my grandmother set up. Claire stared at the papers. My father told us he was forced out by racism, by classists who didn't want a working man on the board. I told you what made him the hero, Ethan said quietly, not what made him a thief. Claire pressed her palm to her forehead. This is why why she's so angry. She thinks this company stole everything from us. She's not just angry, Ethan said. She's weaponizing you to finish what your father started. Then Ethan said something he hadn't said since the beginning. I need to know if I can trust you. Claire looked at him, eyes wide, heart open. You can. He stared back. I want to believe that. Session 7. Jenna's Revenge, Claire's Choice. Thursday, 6:43 p.m., downtown Manhattan. Claire Monroe stood across from her sister Jenna in the rooftop lounge of a boutique hotel where New York's elite never asked questions. The city pulsed below them like a living heartbeat. But inside Claire's chest, everything was numb. I came, Claire said simply. Jenna raised her glass of Bordeaux, swirling it like a cat with a canary in its grip. You always do, she said. That's your problem. Claire didn't respond. I figured you'd show up once you found out, Jenna continued. About Dad, about Daniel, about the truth. Navani said quietly. I showed up because I want to hear it from you. Jenna smiled, sharp as glass. Fine, here it is. Our father gave his life to a company that discarded him like garbage. Daniel promised me a seat at the table if I helped him reclaim what should have been ours. I said yes. Claire stared. He's using you, she whispered. Wait, Jenna corrected. He's weaponizing you. I just gave him the bullets. 2 days earlier, Hayes Global Private Office. Daniel, Jenna said, slipping a glossy folder across the desk. Everything you need. Proof Claire lied about her name, her past, her marital status, and a copy of the fake ID she used to sign Ethan's girlfriend contract. Daniel's eyes gleamed. This will bury him in the next board vote. Jenna smirked. It'll do more than that. It'll bury his name. Depressing rooftop. You're going to ruin him, Claire said, voice trembling. Jenna took a long sip of wine. No, Claire, you are. You fell in love with the enemy. Claire's hands curled into fists. He's not our enemy, she snapped. For a flicker of a moment, Jenna's mask cracked, but it reformed quickly. So what now? Jenna asked, brushing hair behind her ear. You gonna run back to him? Beg him to forgive you for having a family? A police car pulled up as Claire walked into the office waiting for Caroline to arrive. This was her daughter Erin. Claire said. Jenna stood. Then you're choosing him over me. Claire's voice was steel. I'm choosing the truth, and if that burns us both down, then maybe we both need the fire. That night, Whitaker penthouse, 10:21 p.m. Claire burst through the door, breathless, rain dripping from her coat. Ethan was at the kitchen counter, phone to his ear. He hung up when he saw her face. Jenna gave Daniel everything, Claire said, out of breath. The fake ID, the contract. They're planning to leak it to the board before tomorrow's vote. Ethan didn't flinch. I know. Claire blinked. You do. I got a call from the board's counsel. The evidence was submitted anonymously this morning. Claire's stomach dropped. I'm so sorry, she whispered. This is my fault. He stepped forward. No, he said firmly. This started long before you walked into my office. You're not the fire. You're what helped me survive it. Tears filled her eyes. Then let me help you now, she said. Let me fix this. Ethan's expression softened. You don't owe me that. I know, Claire whispered, but I love you, and this time I'm staying to fight. Friday morning, emergency board meeting, 8:00 a.m. 12 men and women sat around the table, folders thick with damning details in front of them. Daniel stood confidently at the end of the room. It is our fiduciary responsibility to protect the integrity of this company, he said. Mr. Whitaker has allowed personal entanglements to endanger our brand. Contracts signed under false identities, unvetted hires, misappropriation of funds. Objection, Marcus cut in. Those funds. Ethan stood, calm and composed. I noticed that Quinn was wearing a bright blue t-shirt. His hair was pony and his eyes were bleak, as he said to his daughter, What do you think, Uncle Henry? The abject pride, which was Quinn's priority, irked him as he said, But I'd also like to invite someone else to speak. He gestured to the door. Claire walked in. Heads turned, phones buzzed, Daniel's smile vanished. Claire stepped up to the table. My name is Claire Monroe. Yes, I signed a contract under my sister's name. Yes, I entered this company through the wrong door, both literally and legally. And yes, I fell in love with the CEO of this firm. She took a breath. I never misused funds. I never posed a threat to this company. What I did was lie to survive. But the moment I had something to lose, I told the truth. She looked at the board. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to look at the man you're considering removing. Ethan Whitaker didn't protect me to hide the truth. He protected me because he's not his father. He's better. The room was silent. Then a voice. Miss Monroe, your sister was the source of this report, correct? Claire nodded. Yes. And she works with Mr. Hayes. Another member sighed. That's a conflict of interest. This entire complaint is compromised. Murmurs broke out. Daniel's jaw clenched. Motion to postpone vote until an external ethics review is complete, one board member said. Seconded. Motion passed. Daniel stormed out. Later that day, the penthouse balcony. Ethan stood beside Claire, holding 2 glasses of wine. "You saved me," he said. Nicole said softly, "I told the truth. You saved yourself." He smiled. "I never believed in fate before you," he said, "but now, I think the wrong door led me to the right woman." She laughed through a tear. "I don't know what happens next," she admitted. "With Jenna, with your company." Ethan leaned closer. "I know what happens with us." He kissed her then, soft, slow, certain. And this time, there was no pretending. Only love. Only truth. Mission 8. The wedding that wasn't meant to be. Saturday, 11:42. I am Whitaker penthouse. Claire Monroe turned the velvet box over in her hands. That wasn't new. The edges were slightly worn, like something held too long in a pocket, too often second-guessed. She hadn't meant to find it, but Ethan had left the drawer slightly open, and curiosity had done the rest. Inside the box, a diamond ring. Elegant, classic, and heartbreakingly not hers. The initials engraved inside the band read, "Hate." Not Claire Monroe. Something else entirely. Ethan walked in from the shower, toweling his hair. He froze the moment he saw the box in her hand. Claire didn't speak right away. When she did, her voice was too steady to be safe. "Who's CH?" Ethan exhaled, slow, heavy. "Camille Harper." Claire nodded. "Once. Was she the plan before me?" "Oh," he said. "She was the plan I never followed through." Flashback. 6 years earlier. A white barn in Vermont. Twinkling lights. And 100 guests who never saw a bride. Ethan stood at the altar for 37 minutes. Then he walked out the back, alone. Camille had left a note on the dressing table. "You deserve someone who can love you without checking the mirror every 5 minutes. I can't be that woman." Present. "She called me 2 days ago," Ethan admitted. "She heard about the board vote, said she wanted to congratulate me on surviving the storm." Enter Claire's voice was flat. "Did she know I was living here?" Olivia nodded. "She asked if we were serious. I told her yes." "Did you mean it?" Ethan stepped closer. I meant it." Claire wanted to believe him. But the ghost of another woman's name still echoed in her ears. Later that day, Whitaker Family Estate, East Hampton. An invitation had arrived that morning. Heavy cream paper. "I'm Grace Whitaker. Join me for a family brunch. Bring Claire. I have something important to share." Claire didn't want to go. Ethan insisted they should. The moment they stepped through the ivy-covered gates, she understood why. The patio was filled with silver trays, champagne flutes, and people she didn't recognize. Till one woman turned around. Camille Harper. Still beautiful, still poised, still devastating. Camille walked straight to Claire, smiling. "You must be Claire," she said warmly. "I've heard so much about you." Claire extended her hand. "Likewise. I was just telling Grace how lovely it is that Ethan finally opened his heart again," Camille said. "It only took him, 6 years?" Ethan appeared at Claire's side instantly. "Camille." But Claire held up a hand. "I'm fine," she said, truly. But she wasn't. Because moments later, Grace stood and raised a toast. Second chances, and to the ones who never let go of love. And for a second, just 1 second, Claire didn't know who she was referring to. That night, penthouse bow kings. Claire stood in the rain, hands gripping the railing. Ethan stepped out behind her. "Talk to me," he said. And slowly. "I'm not angry that you loved someone before me," she said. "I'm angry that a part of you still mourns the wedding that never happened." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You think I want Camille?" "I think you doubt me," she said, voice cracking. Because she had pedigree and polish, and I had to lie to even get through your office door. You think I want a woman who left me because I was too broken to touch? He said. That ring was a symbol of who I used to be. He stepped forward. You're the one who stayed when I was still allergic to affection. You're the one who saw me, really saw me. That ring isn't a reminder of love lost. It's proof I survived. Claire's eyes filled. I want to believe you. Then do. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the same ring box. But this time, he opened it, turned the band, and showed her what he'd added. A second set of initials engraved inside. Called. A moment. Claire Monroe. I kept the ring, Ethan whispered, but I changed the story. He dropped to one knee. Claire gasped. Ben? I don't want a perfect bride. I want the woman who saved my soul with a coffee-stained resume and a truth that nearly ruined me. Will you marry me? Not for legacy, not for contracts, but for real? Claire fell to her knees with him, crying. She said, Yes, Mission 9. The sabotage at the wedding fair. Sunday, 10:12 a.m. Manhattan Bridal and Lifestyle Expo, Chelsea Pier. It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon. Just Ethan and Claire. Hand in hand, browsing gowns, cakes, and invitation designs like any other couple. No bodyguards, no press releases. Just two people planning a future. Claire wore a soft ivory sweater dress, her hair in a low chignon. She looked like peace, finally. Ethan watched her smile at a silk veil and thought, this is what I was meant to build, a life with her. But by 11:02 a.m., everything shattered. It started with a whisper, then a murmur, then silence. Claire was trying on a simple white wrap dress in a boutique booth when she heard it. Isn't that her, the con artist fiancé? The curtain hadn't even closed before two sales associates darted away. Ethan was standing nearby, flipping through cufflink trays, but the moment he saw three phones raised in Claire's direction, he rushed over. What's going on? He asked the assistant, who avoided his eyes. She pointed silently at the overhead screen. Breaking news, viral exposure. Whitaker CEO's fiancé exposed as fraud, used fake identity, staged romance, targeted billionaire. Ethan's throat went dry. On the screen was a still image. Claire, in a white dress, smiling. And next to it, a blown-up copy of her fake employment ID from the first week she entered Ethan's company. Under the photo, exclusive, the woman who fooled New York's most untouchable CEO. 11:07, IM Bridal Fair, chaos. And crowds backed away. Vendors whispered. One camera crew turned their lights toward her booth. Claire stood frozen, pale as the dress she wore. Ethan stepped forward, shielding her with his body. We're leaving, he said. Mr. Whitaker, care to comment? A comment. Is it true she lied about her name, her resume? A comment. He wrapped his coat around Claire and led her out a side exit as flashes went off behind them like paparazzi thunder. Back at the penthouse, 1:43 p.m. Claire stared at the TV in silence. All networks were running the same story. The footage had been leaked anonymously to a gossip blog. Within hours, it spread to mainstream media. Sources confirm Whitaker fiancé used alias, faked work history, and manipulated her way into a contract relationship with Ethan Whitaker. Engagement now under internal review. Claire turned it off. I can't breathe, she whispered. Ethan stood beside her. We'll fix it. Her hands trembled. I told you this would happen. You told me the truth? But not enough. Off, she cried. They're right, I did lie. I used someone else's name to enter your world. Ethan knelt down in front of her. I used to believe that, but now I've never seen me as more than a CEO. She looked at him, eyes flooded. I'm not the woman in that article. Negotiation, he said softly. You're the woman in my future. Later that evening, Grace Whitaker's hospital room. Grace was fuming. They always try to tear down what they can't understand. Grandma, Ethan said gently, we need to know if anyone from the family leaked this. Grace's expression shifted. She turned toward her nightstand, pulled out a letter. This arrived yesterday, she said, unsigned. Ethan opened it. Typed, no fingerprints. But the phrasing was familiar. Cruel, elegant, controlled. Claire stepped forward and pointed to one line. A legacy like yours deserves someone of substance, not someone with scandal stitched into her name. Froze. I've seen this line before, she whispered. It's Camille. It's from a speech she gave at her father's fundraising gala 2 years ago. Word for word. Tuesday 9:32. Away and meet Whitaker Legal Department. Ethan and Marcus met with the in-house attorney. We can't prove Camille leaked it directly, Marcus said, but the phrasing, the timing, and the media contact all trace back to her former publicist. We've got the receipts. Ethan folded his hands. We take legal action. Marcus hesitated. It would escalate this into a media war. The safer option is to cut ties quietly. Claire, who had just walked in, shook her head. They turned. More silence. She said, no more hiding. I'm not suggesting we hide, Marcus began. I am, Ethan said calmly, because this is not about press. This is about us. He stood and walked to Claire. We don't owe the world a performance, but we do owe each other peace. Claire nodded slowly. Then Ethan turned to Marcus. We have our team draft a cease and desist. Camille wants attention. Let's give her paperwork instead. That night, on the rooftop under stars, Ethan brought out a tray, 2 mugs of chamomile tea and a blanket. Claire sat in silence, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. They're always going to see me as the woman who lied, she said. Let them, Ethan replied, because I see the woman who stayed. She looked at him, finally. Would you believe it? What? If it never goes away. Ethan leaned closer. Then we build a life louder than the headlines. And in the distance, the city lights blinked like quiet applause. Mission 10. The wedding that finally happened. Sunday 4:11 p.m., Whitaker Family Chapel, upstate New York. The pews were nearly empty, by design. No press, no guests beyond family, no floral arches, no orchestras. Just whispers of vows echoing beneath aged wooden beams and stained glass that caught the afternoon sun like blessings. Ethan stood at the altar in a charcoal suit. Claire wore a simple white slip dress, her hair down, no veil, just a small heirloom pin from Grace clipped behind one ear. It was the wedding no one saw coming, but the one that mattered more than any they could have imagined. 2 days earlier, Grace Whitaker's hospital room. Grace's hand trembled slightly as she placed a sealed letter in Ethan's palm. What is it? He asked gently. Grace smiled weakly. A gift, but don't open it until your wedding day. Grandma? I won't be there, Ethan, she whispered. But this will be. Tears welled in his eyes. I'm not doing this without you. Grace cupped his cheek. You already are. Just promise me you won't let the past hold you hostage anymore. I promise. Back at the chapel. Claire walked slowly down the aisle. There was no music, just the sound of leaves outside and the click of her heels. Ethan didn't look away once. When she reached him, she took his hand. The officiant smiled warmly. Are we ready? They nodded. He began the ceremony, but Claire interrupted. Can I say something first? The officiant stepped back. Claire turned to Ethan, voice trembling. I used to believe I had to earn love, that I had to be perfect, that my history made me unworthy. But then you saw me, the real me, and you didn't walk away. And she touched her heart. You taught me love isn't about erasing the past, It's about building something honest despite it. Ethan swallowed, his own throat tight. Then it was his turn. I used to believe I wasn't capable of love, that my family's history, our secrets, our silence had hardened something in me forever. But then you walked through the wrong door and made everything right. They exchanged rings. Whispers, not declarations. Soft I do's that felt more powerful than any public spectacle. And when the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Ethan kissed her like a vow. Like the world had been made right again. Back at the chapel foyer, 5:03 p.m. As they signed the license, a knock echoed from the old oak doors. The chapel coordinator opened it. A woman stepped inside. Older, dignified, grief behind her eyes. She held out a letter. "My Claire," she said softly, "from Grace Whitaker." Claire gasped. "You knew her?" "She was my college roommate," the woman replied. "She made me promise if anything happened to her before the wedding, I'd deliver this myself." Claire took the envelope with shaking fingers. Ethan stood beside her as she opened it. "And Grace's letter. Claire, the woman who changed my grandson's life. I knew from the first moment you defended a stranger on a sidewalk that you were the one. You see, love isn't just about fairy tales. It's about who shows up when the world tells you to run. You showed up. For him. For me. This family has known legacy built on power. But with you, I saw legacy built on kindness. And you made my grandson smile again. And that is worth more than any empire we ever built. Welcome to the family, Grace Whitaker." Claire pressed the letter to her chest, tears running freely. "I never got to say goodbye," she whispered. Ethan wrapped his arms around her. "She knew," he said. "She knew everything." 1 week later, Whitaker Foundation office. Claire placed a framed photo of Grace on her new desk. She'd been appointed as the new executive director of the Grace Whitaker Women's Scholarship Fund, an honor she never saw coming. The board had unanimously approved it. The same board that once wanted Ethan removed. Now they asked, because truth, once lived out loud, can't be denied forever. Your apartment balcony, sunset. Claire leaned against Ethan as the sky turned lavender. "I was thinking," she said, "maybe we could do a little dinner next month. Invite the board, a few friends, maybe even the press, but not to prove anything, just to show them what love looks like." Ethan smiled, brushing her hair back. "You sure you're ready?" She nodded. "I'm not afraid anymore." "Neither am I." He kissed her forehead. And for once, there was no twist, no storm. Just a quiet life, finally beginning. Together, some doors are meant to open. Sometimes love doesn't arrive wrapped in perfection. It shows up in the form of a mistake, a misdelivered resume, a wrong room, a broken contract. But behind that wrong door might be the right person. Ethan Whitaker, a man raised on legacy and power, believed he was incapable of love. Claire Monroe, a woman forged by survival, believed she wasn't worthy of it. But the truth is, two broken people can still build something whole. Not because they have no past, but because they choose each other despite it. And that's what real love looks like. Not spotless, not scripted, but earned. You're not defined by the door you walk through. Whether you're entering through the front gate or slipping in through a service door, you matter. Your truth matters. And the right person won't run from your flaws, they'll reach for your hand because of them. Love is not about the resume you bring, it's about the heart you reveal when no one's looking. If this story touched you, if you believe in second chances, if you've ever doubted your worth but kept showing up, if this story reminded you that love can come back, even after 50, like this video, share it with someone who needs to believe in love again. And subscribe for more true stories that heal the heart, one twist at a time. Because sometimes, love knocks when you least expect it. And all you have to do is open the door.